even in our industry, like we're seeing Medicare premiums and things like that rise, but that's across the board. I mean, we're seeing it firsthand, but that's a trickle down effect that's going to continue to happen. Inflation is going to continue to rise, and we're already seeing it with cost of food, right? The average cost of food has went up like 30% or something already. It's ridiculous, but I mean, that is becoming more and more true as we push forward with, everything that we've got going on in the world today.
You guys, and if you consume too much media, too, I'm afraid there's somebody out here that's saying, oh, inflation's not that bad. I read a CNN Money article, or I read an NBC or an ABC article. Listen, guys, no matter what your politics are, pay attention to the opposing media as much as the one that's trying to make it sound good right now. So if you have Biden supporting media, and this is not political for me, if you have Biden supporting media telling you how to think, they're trying to stoke the flame that is pro their cause. If you have Trump in office, like, when he was in office, maybe do listen to some of the opposing things. Maybe don't just listen to Fox News, and maybe they're just cheerleaders for the way things are going. That happens. And so right now, and I bring this up because if you go and Google inflation, there is a barrage of indoctrinating media trying to tell you that inflation is not bad. Horse shit. It's bad unless you own businesses and you can begin to soak up some of that concept. There's the thing about inflation is whoever can capture the money as it's rising, their value of what they're capturing increases at an amount that at least offsets the inflation. So if you have, like Said's going out and doing wedding photography, right? Said over time should be able to charge more for that wedding photography because the value of the dollar is getting lower. Okay, so he has an apparatus to increase that. If you're a nurse who just wants to watch Grey's Anatomy and has a puppy dog and she lives in a little apartment, her ability to increase what she's taken from the whole pie is up to the hospital that she works at. Sid can increase his wedding photography. Like, he might have, for a minute, he might have a hard time getting it. But the thing is, all of those wedding photographers are going to do it over time because their expenses are higher. It's going to cost them more to get a camera. It's going to cost them more to live.
So that's a niche down example, but I think that applies to every industry because every industry, they're all businesses, right? And what is the main goal of the business is to maximize profits. And if their overhead costs are going up, you think they're just going to eat the cost and keep the same prices and say, well, now we're going to make less profit because we had to pay more for our resources. No, they're going to pass that cost on to the end consumer. They're going to raise prices, and so that's raising everything across the board. And again, food right now is one of the immediate things impacted by it, and the cost is going up. But there's a bunch of examples of that across the board. And so, like you said, to downplay it and say, like, inflation is not a thing right now, that is BS because inflation is very much a thing right now, and it's happening across the board. With everything, boats staying out, regardless of the reason, right? Boats being locked at sea because they don't have enough employees to offload the boats, and they don't have COVID-19 causing not enough employees. So it's a trickle down effect, regardless of the reason it's happening.
Yeah, so for a long time, there's been a polarizing concept. It's funny you say trickle down. So trickle down economics is a polarizing concept. It was actually Democrat media created the concept of trickle down economics to throw off what Republicans were saying is that if there's more prosperity, it will trickle down. And so they said, well, it's not true, right? Well, now the negative aspect of it is also a trickle down. If the person who is owns the loading docks and the cargo ships. So I actually know a guy named Perry that lived next to my dad. He had lived next to him when he lived in McClellanville. Had a real nice beach house. Very wealthy guy. He's one of the guys that owns these docks that on board and off board. The cargo, right? He's having a problem hiring these people, so he's going to have to pay more because there is a point where if he offers enough money, he'll get people to do it. Okay. That's what happens. If you're having a labor shortage and I can't pay people enough to do this, you can pay people enough to do anything, like even things that people shouldn't do for money. If you throw enough money at somebody, you're going to find people to do it, right? So they're going to do that. It's going to cost more, and that cost is going to circulate into the cost factor that then causes goods to go up, and it's going to trickle down, increasing prices. And then you're told that that's evil that businesses have to increase their prices to turn a profit. But at the same time, it's going to trickle down because the wages just increase for those people. So it all does trickle down. There is absolutely a trickle down effect. And we've gotten off top of the beginning, but this is how these ramblings go. But from your perspective, what I'm talking about, it's not to be political. It's that to navigate things to the best of your ability, you do have to focus on the wealth building side, because it is the foundational building block, and you have to understand that what wealth is changing. And if you have zero apparatus, I'm not saying you have to be a billionaire, but you have to have an apparatus to collect wealth, or you are going to get poorer.
Yeah. And you can't be complacent, right? And like, we did get off topic, but to tie that back into what we were originally talking about, you can't be complacent with what we're doing, especially if you consider yourself an entrepreneur or a business owner or an independent, right? I have to be striving to scale, to grow my business. I can't put my business there and then kick my feet up and be like, yep, I've got a business now. It's on autopilot. We're just going along. Well, that's great in thought. But if you're not keeping up with what we're talking about, the inflation, the cost of goods, and you're not always striving to accumulate more and more wealth and grow your business, you're not getting anywhere. You've got to stay ahead of the curve, and again, complacency is probably the root of the evil in that. So
I would say complacency is the root of all evil,
yeah.
Not money. The pursuit of money or love of money. Love of money is a bad thing. But the pursuit of money is not a bad thing. The pursuit of money is the pursuit of the resource that everything that you need is. Your health, you need money. To be able to do good for your kids, you need money.
Right.
To be able to just keep up with your current quality, you actually need more money, because you're making $65,000 a year is not going to be making $65,000 a year 10 years from now. Making $112,000 a year is going to be, or that's just an example, but you have to make more just to make the same. You can't just coast. It doesn't exist. If you're not growing, you are shrinking, and your health, everything is dependent on it. And it's all part of the same conversation, and that's why it evolves to that. Because to get your money right, to get your health right, you have to get your money bigger than you thought you did before.
Right. Well, and you can't just say, I make $100,000 now, because if you've been in the business for a long time and your goal was to make $100,000 20 years ago, that would have went a lot. It would have went a longer way, right? Gas was $1 and milk was 50 cents or whatever, right? So $100,000 20 years ago would have meant a lot more to you than it's going to give you now, where it's almost going to be next to nothing now. I mean, it's not the same. So continue to grow your business, continue to drive, for that next step in what you're doing. And I think you'll be able to keep up with it.
Yep. Have an apparatus to collect money. What is an apparatus to collect money? Any business.
A business, yeah.
Any business, and real estate, whatever, anything that is a business, that's what collects it. Or if you're part of somebody else's business, try to do it in a way that allows you to collect part of the upside potential of that business. And, if you have a job where you're making good money, invest that money in something that is a business or that will grow over time. Invest it. Don't just sit there and think I can make $65,000 a year and just live paycheck to paycheck. That ain't living. And you can't live that way forever. So if you live that way forever, I have in-laws right now that I'm afraid they're going to try to piggyback off of us down the road, because then I can see them not preparing for the shelf of retirement that's coming. Yeah. You see people at 55 years old buying a new house, living in terrible health because they can't focus on their health because they don't have wealth. And I'm sitting there seeing that they're going to be 10 years into a 30-year fixed rate mortgage, and they're not going to be able to work at the current capacity they are now. They're going to have to go on Social Security because they haven't saved anything. And then what? And these are financial cliffs that are crazy, and they're all over the place because they've been told to buy a house. The time if you're going to buy the house and live the middle class lifestyle, do it when you're 25, so that by the time you're 55, you at least have the damn thing paid off.
And that's nothing your bank's coming to you and say, hey, we're looking at this, and in 30 years, you're going to be 75, you're going to be 85.
They're saying we'd be happy to take 10 years of payments, repo the house, and resell it at its current market value.
Yep, they're in the business to make money, so they're not putting that thought in your mind because they don't want to scare you off from not buying the house. They want you to buy the house.
And they also know, just like in 2008, if you default on it, that they'll just get to collect more taxpayer dollars from the Federal Reserve, get bailed out, because you have to bail them out, because if you don't, you have the Great Depression, right? Yep. So the whole thing. So anyway, the point is, you cannot think like a lower middle class. I just want to be happy. I just want to do. Happiness is completely tied to your wealth. Your health is completely tied to your wealth. The wealth is the root of it. And it's not me being evil saying that. It's me being honest with you that billionaires are healthier because they're wealthier, not the opposite. Other than maybe a bodybuilder that got famous bodybuilding, or a professional athlete. And if you're watching this and you're a professional athlete, you don't even need to be watching this. Just don't spend your money too quickly, okay? Because you have a shelf life. But that's the way it is. So hope this helps somebody out there understand what we're talking about.